want to tell you a story about the Great Ocean Road, because someone mentioned this to me the other day, and it piqued my interest around the Great Ocean Road and what's the 12 Apostles on that particular part of that stretch of the Great Ocean Road in southern Victoria in Australia, when he was talking about the nature of the energetic veil that was down there, that part of Australia, that part of the world. When this friend of mine was talking about the energetic veil that's there and how thin it was in certain places, I was kind of thrown back, because I had an experience there in 1997, last century. I had an experience there in the Great Ocean Road that defied for me, but it also excited me, defied the laws of physics for me at the time, because I had no real idea about the nature of veils. And I mean veils, it's like, for me, looking back at it now and what my friend Joe said about this particular location, we listened to someone talk about it in regards to the thin veils on the planetary surface where time, the circular notion of time, and also where timelines intersect sometimes, and you can have an experience where you see something that might be happening in that moment, in the eternal now, but another level, another timeline. Say, there is no past, present and future, it's only the eternal now. But in the eternal now, there's a moment happening where everything's happening at once, but in that same location. But the veils are so thin that you can actually see each other, so to speak. You can see yourself and other levels of existence can all see each other in that same moment, in that same location, which I thought was kind of cool, very sci-fi kind of thing to think about. So what I had in 1997, I was with a couple of friends called Pat and Marcus, who were friends of Mike's girlfriend, Annette Lyon, or friends of hers. What I had was this experience where I went to stay with Marcus and Pat at a friend's place on the Great Ocean Road, who had a ranch down there. We went camping down there in the middle of what would have been the late autumn in Australia, so it would have been actually almost winter. It was June, end of May, early June. Was it June? I think it might have been June actually, looking back at it, because Annette had already gone to Germany, so it was June. It was definitely June. It's a long time ago for me, so I'm remembering almost 30 years. Jeez. Anyway, so me, Pat and Marcus went down to camp out at this ranch on the Great Ocean Road near the 12 Apostles and Apollo Bay, somewhere around that way. And when we were camping down there, we had some acid, and we dropped the acid during the daytime. And it was like, but back in the day, back in the 90s, acid was a big thing for me. I took it quite a lot. But I never had full-on hallucinations. I never had full-on spectral hallucinations with my eyes open. I never saw spirit. I never saw entities. I never had experiences where I was transported to another place, another location. I had deep connection. I had definitely levels of heightened consciousness, but I never had full-on hallucinations. I had fractal patterns appear in my eyes, with my eyes closed. I'd see fractal patterns, but I never had a full-on visual hallucination. This acid that we have was pretty laughy. We just laughed a lot. We went to an international park on the coast of Great Ocean Road. We went to a national park that day. We took it, and we had some pretty crazy experiences. We went bushwhacking actually. We climbed down a wall to a waterfall. Get down to a waterfall. Me, Marcus, and Pat, tripping balls. Climbed down this very steep waterfall to get down to this area where this waterfall was, because we could see an echidna down there. And the echidna, which is a spiny hedgehog with spines, very strange looking marsupial, had fallen down off this bank and died, hit the ground below where the waterfall was and died. When I got down there, when I was tripping, I pulled out one of the spines, and I had my left ear pierced, and I shoved the echidna quill through my ear. I literally pushed it through, much to the horror of Marcus and Pat. I didn't feel any pain. I shoved it straight through my ear, washed it first in the water where the waterfall was, and then shoved it in my ear. And left it in there for the whole day, and strangely enough, by the end of the day, it actually popped out and fell out of my ear completely. My ear just rejected it, popped out, and it fell into the ground. Hilarious. But later that night, Marcus wanted a lot of fire on the beach, not far from where we were camping. So we went down to this beach. It was really close to the fucking road. I mean, like real close to the road. Basically a bend in the road like this. And then we were here next to the bend in the road, lighting a huge fucking fire, tripping balls on the side of the road. And cars are driving past, and you can see the smoke billowing up onto the road. Cars are driving through the road and through the smoke, and we were like, whoa! You can see the beams of the headlights of the cars going through the smoke, and it looked fucking wild. You're tripping, right? So we're on this beach, a bit windy. This huge bonfire. Me, Marcus, and Pat. And I was here with my back towards the ocean. Pat was in front of me here to my right, and Marcus was to my left. Now what happened to me in this moment was extraordinary. Extraordinary. And looking back at it now, what my friend Joe said about the nature of the veil, how the veil in that particular area is very thin energetically, and how those timelines and how those moments from different levels of existence and levels of time. There is no time, remember that. It's just a reality within the realm. All crossed over in that moment for me, looking back at it now. Because what I saw around me, I was squatting down in front of the fire, and my eyes were open, so I'm not saying this for one moment was a hallucination. It wasn't a hallucination. For me it was, I could see these people around me, right? Quite clearly. So in the gaps between me, Marcus and Pat, I had my eyes closed at first for a little while around the fire, and just looking at fractal patterns in my eyes as the fire flames lifted off and pushed out towards us, and I felt the heat, and I was seeing all these incredible fractal patterns behind my eyes. I had this urge to open up my eyes. And I opened up my eyes, and with the gaps between me, Marcus and Pat, about some quite big gaps, because Pat was on this side, Marcus is on this side. There's a gap here, there's a gap here, there's a gap here, there. In those gaps around us were Homo erectus, the hominid Homo erectus. As someone who's got a double major in anthropology and classical studies from Target University, I know what a Homo erectus looks like, right? According to the official accounts. And these Homo erectus were basically squatting down in the gaps between me, Marcus and Pat, all looking at the fire. Not at us, at the fire, looking at the fire. And behind them and around us were a circle of First Nations people, all holding spears. And they all had white dots on their skin with lines, white lines and white dots on their skin. And they were all looking at the fire as well. And some of them had like white paint around their heads and their foreheads and white dots on their faces. Not all of them, some of them. And we were all standing around and squatting around the fire, all looking at the fire together. And I just looked around. I looked around at Marcus and Pat, thinking they could probably see this as well, but they weren't reacting in any way. And I was looking to my right, looking to my left at these hominids that supposedly never got to Australia. Apparently Homo erectus got to Indonesia, Java man, but never got as far as Australia. Well, for me, in my experience, Homo erectus did get to Australia. So I saw Homo erectus around me. And I knew in that moment that Homo erectus had arrived in Australia. And behind them were the next migration of people, the First Nations people, the first people, Homo sapiens sapiens that arrived in Australia. And the moment I realised what I was looking at, I was smiling, looking at the situation. Pat, to my right, oh fuck, had this freak out moment. Oh, did you feel that? Did you feel it? Someone was there, someone was there. And when that happened, the veil closed. And that First Nations people and the Homo erectus around us, gone. And Pat freaked out. Oh, fuck. Did you feel that? Someone was here. Someone was next to me. I could totally feel it. And I was like, whoa. I explained to Marcus and Pat what I experienced. And they were just tripped out. They were just too freaked out by that, the whole concept. They were too freaked out by what was. But for me, it was so tangible and so real that Homo erectus had made it to Australia and had made it down to where we were. Maybe even as far as Tasmania, I don't know. And the people that were around us, the Homo sapiens sapiens, the Aboriginals that were around us, I'm not sure if they're from that part of Australia. I'm not sure, but I know what they look like. And I was perplexed. How could that be possible that I was able to see in that moment? I felt in that moment that it was more historical. I was having this historical moment where I was looking at the first ring, the Homo erectus, looking at the fire that they'd created, a fire that they'd created in their moment, and they were looking at it, watching it, and behind them there were a ring of First Nations Homo sapiens sapiens, what we call Aboriginal people, First Nations people of Australia, around us, behind us. And that gone from the Homo erectus to the First Nations people to us, and we were all there together in that moment. And I had no way to explain it. I was tripping balls on acid, but that's not how it was for me. It wasn't like it was. It was not a hallucination for me. It wasn't a hallucination. It was like I was looking into a moment, and now looking back at it with my friend Joe's information he gave me 3 days ago, around this place, this location on the Great Ocean Road of Australia, the veil I can see now and feel now is very thin in that part of the world. It's a very thin veil between not necessarily timelines, but the eternal now, as David Icke would show you on a DVD disc. It's all happening in the same now. It's all happening. But that veil where all those timelines, where all those moments are crossing and flowing, and this fluidity, where they can appear. There's a few spots in the world where you can have this experience. And that for me was one of them. That was one of them. And that was a big one for me, having that experience there, because it showed me how ancient and magical that land is, Australia is. And the experiences that I had on Australia changed me forever. There's a foundry over there. The other side of the stream is a foundry over there. That changed me forever. Because I began to feel the nature of how old that land was. And I just arrived in Australia when this happened. I was only been there for like 6 weeks when this happened to me. And it opened up my eyes to a world beyond my own, where I come from here, Aotearoa, New Zealand, Te Ika a Maui, Te Waipaunam, to a world that I couldn't even conceive of. And believe me, my right arm has all Australian references to my experiences in that land. And that moment there changed me forever, because it opened up for me the ability and the knowledge and the gnosis to know that I had this ability to tune in to these energies whenever I was still, whenever I was peaceful, and whenever I was open to the experience. And I had many more experiences around Australia and around the world where I've had experiences very similar to this. Even here in my own country of birth, I've had experiences like this. But that one was a doozy. And I do feel and perceive that Homo erectus got to Australia and crossed the Torres Strait, crossed the small ocean between, the strait between what would have been Sunda and Sahel Sahul, which is in Australia, Papua New Guinea, managed to get across and got to Australia. I'm not sure if there's archaeological evidence or fossil evidence to prove that to be the case, but I do know that Homo erectus got to Australia before the First Nations people got there. That being what we call today the First Nations people of Australia. Thanks for watching, I truly appreciate it. Mā te ua. I'll see you again soon.